a program where the Holland Chandler attorney Rocky Cabagnot interviews local and regional leaders in the nonprofit, private, and public sectors to discuss the real-world interplay of law, business, and the social dynamics within the context of our continuously changing times. Rocky helps nonprofits stay legally compliant, avoid legal problems, and resolve legal issues when they come up. Nonprofits looking for legal services can choose to bring Rocky on their management team as a team member and through the fractional general counsel program, or utilize Rocky as an attorney on standby through our firm's affordable legal subscription service. If you want to learn more, you can follow up with me directly. Don't let your nonprofit go without access to quality legal counsel when it needs it. So everyone, welcome to the Leadership Series. Rocky, take it away.
Hey guys, again, thank you for showing up, taking time out of your busy week to show up on a Wednesday for our our bi-monthly discussions about things, again, topics in the nonprofit sector and the public and private and continuously changing times. So today's topic really kind of it fits that, is talking about changing times. I mean, we've got many generations. So I am what they call Generation X. You know, I came up during the time of grunge rock and gangster rap and Bill Clinton. There's a lot written about us. And then, of course, I mean, for the last 20 years, I think we've gotten to the point where there was some comedian named Dan Nanan who was like 60 going around being called a millennial. I think for like 20 years now, we've had tons of discussion about the millennials and the millennial vote and the millennial this. Well, today we're going to talk about another generation that is coming up, and that is Gen Z. And I find that very important because I've got a Gen Zer at home, and I am usually quite befuddled by his responses, his takes, his I have not felt it was. I now feel like old, and I think that's probably the way it should be, right? But this isn't just a discussion about, what is Gen Z, because again, we are talking about in our discussions here, we're talking about Charlotte, we're talking about North Carolina, in this region, and again, many of our clients are business owners. They are large size business owners, nonprofit leaders, but they are now, interestingly, having to onboard to, at some level, the Gen Z generation. And there's been a lot that's been put out there. In fact, quite a few episodes back, we had Josh Jacobson on to talk about his social good report that his consulting firm is putting out about how businesses can interact with the nonprofit sector. One of the underlying premises of his report is precisely this up-and-coming Gen Z, or this emerging workforce. And what are the things that employers need to do as far as recruitment, retention, because it's almost like, to me, it's almost like diplomacy or being an ambassador. You have to understand the country before you can actually do business there, right? And I think that it's incumbent upon all of us who are interacting with this newer generation that has gone through a lot of things. I think they, what this generation, the first thing I think they know is maybe 9/11, maybe the financial crisis, obviously the 2016 election. I mean, COVID. I mean, you think about your particular generation, what were some of those, generational demarkers, and this generation's and quite a few. And so to join us to talk about helping us identify, understand Gen Z, and also to sort of see how those of us in our client base in a nonprofit world who are looking to work with, to onboard, to recruit, to retain the Gen Z workforce is our good friend Armah Shiancoe. And so Armah is an educational leader. He's a nonprofit leader. He's been involved in quite a few affairs here in town as far as social progress. But you know what? I will just go ahead and let's just introduce Armah to the group here. And maybe a question I like to ask people is, Armah, what has been your path to leadership? Not even just nonprofit leadership. It's just leadership in general, because obviously I got another plug for you in a minute. But tell us a little bit about yourself and how you come to leadership, and of course how you connect to Gen Z.
Thank you, Rocky. Thank you, Shannon. This is truly an honor to be here. It's great to see even other familiar faces that I'm familiar with and have known for some time now. For those that I have not met yet and just now meeting, I'm truly grateful for you to be here and to want to hear me say anything, right? So, of course, my name is Armah. I moved to the Charlotte area in about 2004, July 10th, 2004 to be exact, a day that will forever live in infamy. And I came here not knowing or even expecting to stay in Charlotte, but something just clicked when I stepped on the soil of Charlotte after I got off the training that I took to get here. And it just felt right. And at that time, I was at a crossroads in my life because I was just now coming out of situations that really had me questioning a lot about life overall, and you know, my part that I had to play in it. So when I moved to Charlotte, it was a very critical time for me where I was trying to figure out what my future would be. And what that led to was me first coming down here to reconnect with the mother that I had not communicated with or seen in over 10 years. Long story, that's a whole nother conversation. If you're interested, I'm happy to sit down and have coffee or dinner or whatever and talk to you about that part of it. But when I got to Charlotte, my mother really was someone who, after reconnecting, after losing touch with each other for about 10 years, we had conversations that really started to challenge me in my integrity. Because we had been separated for about 10 years. I was 12 the last time I saw and even spoke to her, or the last time I saw her. When I saw her again in Charlotte, when I first came to Charlotte to visit, I was 22. And we all know how much can happen between the ages of 12 and 22, right? So for me, I was in school. I was a middle school student, high school student, went through all those processes without my mother there. Even though I was living with an aunt who I consider a mother, it wasn't the same, right? Because I grew up with a mother who gave me freedom to actually do schoolwork and things on my own accord, which had me on the path of being an honor student. When I moved into this new household, it was more restrictive. It was more traditional in terms of authoritative, in terms of my aunt and her style of leadership, really. And I rebelled against it. So I struggled mightily in high school, especially. And even other things in terms of personal insecurities had me going through high school in terms of my experiences, not really taking full advantage of my opportunity or even really applying myself. So let me fast forward. I graduated from high school. I managed to graduate from high school, not really applying myself. I couldn't even go to college because I was not born here. So I didn't qualify for financial aid and things along those lines, like Pell Grant and things of that nature. So I spent 4 years literally just working dead-end jobs. And it was one day at this dead-end job that someone said to me, "Hey, you seem like you're a pretty smart kid. Why are you here doing this where you could be doing many other things?" And that was the first time. And he asked me, "So what do you want to do with your life?" And that was the first time somebody really asked me that question, where it made me want to stop in my tracks, because I had now gotten to the point where I was sick and tired of all the things that I've been doing that were really leading me nowhere. I was paying bills, and then the rest of it, I was literally just partying and whatever else came with being a young adult. That really wasn't leading me to much of anything. So my mother and I reconnected, or she found me in 2002 and connected and somehow reached out. And long story short, she ended up asking me to come down. It took a while for me to actually just get the guts to do so. But I came to Charlotte in 2004, July 2004 to visit her. We had enough conversations where I told her that I knew that I wanted to do more with my life now. And I was ready to go to college because I knew I had an idea what I wanted to do in college. And that led to me being signed up for CPCC as a student.
Okay.
It wasn't something that I wanted though, right? Because in my mind, the community college was for idiots. That's what society has us thinking. And because I now am ready to go to college, I want to go to a 4-year college because that's where we push everybody to go, right? I felt like, why should I, now that I'm ready and want to go to college, why should I start at a 4-year school where it's not the smartest of kids that go there? Because that was what my perception was at the time. I'm happy to say that that was the best thing that ever happened to me. Even though I rebelled against it and I fought against it, it became the best thing that ever happened to me, because what the community college allowed for me to do was to actually experiment and do things that I probably wouldn't have if I had gone straight to a 4-year school. And it wasn't as expensive, right? And my mother also came out of her 401k, took cash out of her 401k to pay my tuition and fees for my first 2 semesters, which was something that heavily impacted me because after she did it the first time, I didn't want her ever doing it again, even though she did it the second time. But it made me realize that I needed to figure out a way to get money to pay for my own schooling so my mother is not taken away from her own personal savings for her retirement. So those are some of the things that I want to share because these are things that have really impacted me to make me take on more of a role that allowed me to be more serious than probably the average student at the time because I didn't do much like the other students at the time. And I found myself looking for things to get involved with because I didn't want to encounter or go through the same things I had gone through before I moved to Charlotte, which were not very positive things. And I really wanted to find environments that would nurture and develop me and push me even further. So the community college allowed me to experience all of those things times a million. And for me, it was getting involved with something like student government. I was looking for clubs. And then I was presented with the opportunity to join student government that I didn't think was for me because I didn't like politics. I still don't like politics really. But student government allowed me to really immerse myself in the campus community where I served with other students and got to know other students, got to be developed in the area of leadership in ways that I didn't expect. And it really exposed me to things that I had never thought about even, that not only developed certain skills in me, but it also enhanced other things that I didn't even know were there. And then it connected me with other young people who are doing even more superior things than I even thought was possible for us to do as college students. So I knew that this was something that was unique and different. So my introduction to leadership was really being a part of student government when I was in college at the community college. Even though I was there for the academics, getting involved outside of the classroom is really where my interest and my curiosity around leadership began to be began to just flourish or even be nourished, right? Did I answer your question there?
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I think, well, you know, just you've gotten to Charlotte and because again, we're sort of having an open discussion because you know, number one, just to let you all know that Armah is an author as well. And so he does have an ebook out and it's called Leadership as a Choice. And I think that I did read through this and I think that it kind of plays into a lot of what, you know, we were kind of talking about with the Gen Z and it does tie into this book about leadership being a choice because it sounds like where you are now kind of gets us tied up to because I know that you had because when I first met you, it's maybe with 2014 or something, you were an administrator at CPCC. I believe you had you did have a run, or maybe you're still involved as a senior executive at a nonprofit.
Now I am.
Yeah, okay.
Now I am an executive of a nonprofit that focuses on workforce development. When you and I first met, I was only a recruiter at CPCC.
Okay.
Even though it seemed like I was doing more than that, and I may probably have been doing a lot more that made people think that I was an administrator.
Yeah, I thought you were an yeah. I mean, I you're like, you know, yeah, at least if not the dean, at least assistant dean of something. I mean, you know, at least the way you carried yourself, you know.
I definitely wasn't getting the paychecks for it. Rocky.
Okay, fair enough. Well, I'm a legal aid attorney. I know about not getting the paychecks for it. So, you now the nonprofit, but now it sounds like because where you are, I see a blackboard behind you. So obviously, when we're talking about this Gen Z topic, you're obviously seeing Gen Z. Well, I mean, now I guess because now we're opening the schools back up, you're seeing Gen Z a lot more in person, and I think COVID and the virtual stuff plays a role here. But so, I mean, we've talked around the Gen Z. I mean, if you had to, based on your experience and such, well, tell us a little bit what you're doing right now. I mean, because again, I think that helps us contextualize our discussion.
Absolutely. So what I'm doing now, I'm in my 4th year of teaching high school business.
Okay.
I've had an itch to teach for years. I've just been running away from it because I'm also very much an entrepreneur. And that's what I was doing before I even started college at 22. And I went into college with my own business and used college, especially Queens, to develop business plans with professors as independent study opportunities and things of that nature. So that's the core of who I am. But when I was introduced to this world of academia, it really just, it just wouldn't let me just not focus on, it wouldn't allow me to just focus on business. Somehow it just pulled me in to where I was so curious. And it led to me, long story short, I now have been teaching for 4 years now. I'm in my 4th year of teaching high school business. I've taught everything from advertising to marketing to entrepreneurship, which is what I'm teaching this semester specifically. And I'm fortunate to be in the classroom every single day, Monday through Friday, with students for at least 3 classes, 3 periods, right?
Yeah.
And what that does for me, I call it my lab, my personal experimentation lab, where I'm literally not only engaging or learning and perfecting my ability to engage them, I'm also figuring out and learning and asking the questions that we should be asking them as adults, and then listening to hear what they really truly have to say. Because I think part of the issue here is we adults are so used to doing things systematically or even traditionally that when young people want to share thoughts and opinions, we take it as disrespect because of how they deliver it. Not necessarily what they're saying, but their delivery tends to be off. But that's not even to a fault of their own, because we haven't worked with them to help them understand that there's a way in which you do things. It's not necessarily what you say or what you do, is how you say it and how you do it. And we need to work with them to figure that out.
Yeah. So it sounds like we've got the context here, because obviously you've spent time in the community college, working there, recruiting, both, I guess, millennials and Gen Z, depending on where that cutoff is. And you've been involved in a nonprofit. You're still involved with a nonprofit that's focused on workforce development. But now you spent 4 years now teaching business, which is different. Obviously, if you were teaching English, because now you can have conversations that are not just about the text itself. You can have conversations outside of it. So for those of us who are still trying to figure out this Gen Z thing, and also for many of us are either, because even when I was running the nonprofit, we were onboarding, you could tell by their social media usage and things of that nature, our policies, things like that. So taking all of the sort of 4 or 5 years of such, tell us some like if I'm like an HR recruiter, right? I come to you and like, obviously there's labor shortages and there's all kinds of crazy stuff going on with the economy, supply chains and things. But the question here is like, we've got to fill these spots, and I've been tasked with recruiting younger people. Maybe obviously not solely, because that would be discrimination based on age, but at least we're going to try to increase our recruitment. And it seems that our recruitment efforts are failing. So maybe you could tell us a little bit about, because we had talked about this, like what are the traditional efforts of recruitment? Straight up, I'll put something on Indeed and I'll go to a job fair and I'll sit here and people will just show up with their resumes in hand. But there is a job shortage. I mean, there's a labor shortage, and obviously some people are not coming into work for a variety of reasons, and we have sociological discussions about that. But I'm an employer, I got a restaurant, I'm having to put the sign on the door, say, well, it'd be great if you could come in, but I've got 3 people in here, so you can either wait or wait, So tell us a little bit about how you see Gen Z, and how do you see their role, and how can their presence in sort of our workforce development, our workforce economy?
Thank you. That's a great question. I mean, you hit on so many things there, Rocky. And I think that more entities need to be asking these questions, not just amongst ourselves as adults, but what I even think needs to happen now is we take it a step further, and that's to actually pull some of the more reliable folks within the demographic and the generation that we're talking about, the Generation Z, pull some of those young people that are leaders within that generation to the table. That's where we are now. In my humble opinion, we're now at the phase in our society and in our country, really, where we have to pull them to the table, because not only do they want to do well, contrary to what we think, they do want to do well, not only individually, but they care more about them doing well collectively.
Okay.
I'm
going into that.
This happen nonstop.
Yeah.
They want to do well collectively. Not only do they care that they are doing well, and by doing well, I'm not saying that they're making, because it's not even money that motivates them anymore. This is a generation that's not motivated by money. And traditional ways of doing things in terms of corporate strategy is, I want you so badly that I'm willing to give you more money to come here, right? They're saying it's not your money that's going to get my attention, so you need to do more than offer me money. What we're not doing as corporations is really meeting them where they are, because we think as corporations that still operate from our traditional systems, right? We think that they have to still meet us where we are or rise up to the level of our expectation, when that's no longer the case. You're going to see that companies who still have that mindset or that way of approaching things, or even trying to approach this generation, they're going to lose out on the battle for retaining or even to attracting talent. They're not going to attract any more talent.
So, because you said something really important here, because I think this is, and not to say that all generations were money driven, you know, because I think that there's levels of idealism and such within each, you know, cohort. But I think that was kind of striking, because he said money doesn't motivate them. It kind of takes me to like Josh's report. I mean, maybe I should have brought him in or something, and maybe we can have a follow-up conversation. But I know in his report, you know, I think what his thesis of a lot of his report is just that company. Now, he supports the nonprofit sector, so what he's putting forward is something along the lines of business X, I can help coordinate with nonprofit Y some programming and some connection, and you're actually, it's almost, instead of seeing us as charity, you know, us giving us dollars, you're seeing us almost more as an adjunct to your HR program. You're you know, because this younger workforce, you know, if you get a cool enough charity or a charity they really care about, and you're doing, then it makes them feel better about working here. They're less apt to transfer over to the next company or the next firm. I see you nodding your head quite a lot here. So, so tell me about why is that then? Why is it that, why would something like that work for Gen Z? Whereas, I mean, you know, I've worked in a variety of places, different things, and well, you know, I mean, the most I've ever seen is, and I think most of you know, is the United Way thing, right? Somebody gets hooked up with the United Way at your workplace, and they go around and they try to get you to, like, okay, they're going to debit like $13 from your paycheck every year or something like that. You know, that's kind of our experience with, say, charity in the workplace. But like what that report is saying and such, I mean, I guess I'm trying to, like, what is in the nature or and I mean, I guess it's hard to make these huge blanket statements about an entire but we talk about the greatest generation, we talk about these generations and such. So there's got to be some truth to it. I'm not saying that everything is true, but there's got to be some truth to it. So tell us, like, some of your observations in having been in the seat that you currently are in, that kind of plays in this role, and kind of like, because of your workforce development, tell us, like, what are things that we as employers, whether we're in the nonprofit sector, we're in the for-profit sector, need to know about this emerging workforce?
Very good. I mean, you're still hitting on so many things. And I love how you're pulling up Josh's study or thesis, really, to even validate some of this stuff, because I haven't talked to him or seen his results or his study, right? But you're really confirming a lot of even what I'm seeing in the classroom, right? With what you shared about what he's presented. So from my perspective, first, let me clarify and say that when I say they don't generally care about money, I'm not saying every single one of them don't care, but generally as a generation, overall, it's not money that motivates them or appeals to them or draws their attention. They care to do good work, contrary to our beliefs. They want to do good work, but they want to do good work with entities that they know care.
Okay.
Not just about them, but about our world, about our communities, about our environments that we all inhabit.
So it does, like, so when we see the NFL and they, you know, obviously we can, you know, I'm still not sold, because I mean, you know, Mr. Kaepernick does not have a jersey on right now, so I'm still not sold on this, but at least, you know, there's a lot more product endorsement about, you know, racial justice and Black Lives Matter going on in the NFL today than obviously it was when, you know, Mr. Kaepernick was, you know, being told he can't suit up. You know, and so but I guess, but I think in some respects, maybe that's because the players are all Gen Zs and they probably would want to stick around with an association that at least has some kind of value system beyond the dollars and cents and the salary caps and such. I mean, you see that a lot in the NBA for sure. I mean, I think during the bubble, everybody was like, had their own names on it. Go ahead.
No, Rocky, not to cut you off, but when you bring up the NBA, look at the person who's currently the leader of all players in the NBA. That's LeBron James.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Look at his rap sheet and what he's done since he entered the league and the things that he actually gives a voice to. LeBron has transcended basketball. He transcended basketball years ago.
Yeah.
The guy not only has a multi-billion-dollar empire that most people aren't aware of all the things that he's doing within that empire, he's also given his time to creating a school.
So let's say I'm looking at the sort of the types of clients that come through our door. So I know we've worked with a lot of financial services, financial planner type folks or firms. I mean, like, that's a very money driven type of place, but how would, if you were to market, or like recruit for that type of firm with Gen Z, do you have a strategy? Do you just sort of just say, well, maybe we just need to look at Gen X and see if they show up? What is the?
Well, I think for me, and what I'm suggesting to most folks, based on what my observations and what my learnings are, is start reaching them early. The traditional recruitment strategy and process of recruiting is outdated. We show up when we want them to come into our companies when they're coming out of college. We need to get into the high schools and start reaching them and engaging them and letting them know that first we care about them and their thoughts and their opinions. And then we continue along the way by even inviting them into our corporations or our businesses, right? Bring them in, let them see the things that we're telling them we're getting them ready for to go and do that we never ever show them.
So are you saying that the generation is less theoretical, more practical?
Bingo.
Because I know when I was taught, everything was textbook, right? And your grades. And while, yeah, I would sometimes ask a question about how's this math, how's algebra going to help me in the real world? I was too focused on when can I, manufacture an answer without, justify that crap I found in the back of the book, kind of like get my answer there. So because that's interesting, because it sounds like that they want to see, almost like it's saying how the sausage is made. They want to know like what is there. So instead of what you were saying, like in a traditional thing through like the OCI, the on-campus interviewing thing, where like when I was a senior at Carolina, or I was like in my 3 year of law school, you would look at this list and they'd say X, Y, and Z are coming to campus to recruit. And if you have X amount GPA or this, you can sign up and put your resume in the door and such, because the employers were driving it, right? Because they would say, we want these types of majors, or we want these types of these folks, or something. What you're saying here is that that model isn't going to work. They're going to be hearing a lot of crickets if they show up on campus under this rubric. So
and not only am I saying that, I'm seeing it happen in our school when these colleges and universities show up and these companies show up and they're expecting kids to sign up and show up to come learn about who they are and what they have to offer. And there might be 2 students in there. Really?
Because, I feel like it's like, how it was going, how it is now, that's like kind of meme, like back then, when college would show up in high school, if they would even show up, you'd crowd them, for, at least get a brochure or an application, just seemed cool. So why is it? Why aren't they coming to, if Duke or somebody, heavyweight name or Queens, comes to your high school? I see Daryl there. So, it's like if Queens University comes to the high school you're sitting in, and they went on the PA and they said, we're going to have Queens University here. And if you want to learn more about the opportunities at Queens, we'll be having them in the lobby or in the atrium. You'd say like 2 kids out of probably how many kids? You're like 1,000, probably 2,000 students would show up. No, not even 2.
It's almost like they're more into experiences.
There you go.
Experiences more.
They want experiences. You're absolutely correct.
Something that really struck me that colleges seem to be doing is they are allowing students to participate in other universities' programs. So if you are at App State and you are in a forensic anthropology program as a grad student, you can actually attend University of Tennessee as an App State student, paying, I think from what I understand, paying App State tuition. You know, I think that there's limitations on that, but it's, you're getting the experience because of course University of Tennessee has a much larger school, you know, than in anthropology and especially in forensics than App State does. So it's giving someone that still chooses, you know, one university for certain reasons, it still gives them a stronger and different experience.
Yeah.
So it's
you're right on, Ms. Dooley.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And you know, two of my kids go to a, you know, you don't call it a liberal arts school anymore, but it actually is a liberal arts school. They call them.
When was their dad to call something a liberal? You know that. Anyway, I'm old. I'm old. I'm not with the times anymore.
Liberal arts will come back. It will come back. They are coming back.
You know, I was a major in the liberal. I was a poli-sci major, liberal school, college of liberal arts. I mean, that's where you know, my major.
But their freshman seminars are these incredible. They have these incredible themes, you know, and they're varied, but they all have to accomplish, you know, a certain type of curriculum. But my kids are absolutely fascinated, and it keeps. One is about world, you know, War of the Worlds, and you know, it's incorporating all this different stuff. And one is the history of Appalachia, is a freshman seminar. But it encompasses so much more.
And Christy, just to clarify, your kids are in the Gen Z cohort.
Yes. So those two, I have a 21-year-old that went. She was supposed to go to CPCC, and had the same. She had the same idea as Armah about who, you know, she didn't want to go there. But she had some restrictions on where she could go, and she ended up dropping out behind our back. And so, but now she lives on a farm/horse ranch, and she's learning to train high-end performance horses and breed. And yeah,
she's having fun doing it, isn't she?
She is. Yeah, she loves it.
You see, so now it's about practicality, isn't it?
It is. Yep, it is.
That's the point that I'm really trying to lead to. They want practical. They want to learn practical things. They want to know that if you have me do this, it's going to allow me to do X.
Yeah.
So it's almost kind of like it's. I mean, it's almost kind of like what I did when I was teaching at the law school. You know, I was in the law school clinic. It was called experiential learning. And the idea is that you can learn to be a lawyer by, I don't know, being a lawyer, right? Under supervision. And so that's what we did for 5 years at the Charlotte School of Law, you know, RIP. You know, students would work under my supervision, and we would, you know, they would actually handle real live client matters with, you know, real small businesses or nonprofits of the such. And I think that you know, but in the world of higher education, that type of world is very much in the minority. You know, at least it has been historically. I mean, we joked as clinicians that we were kind of like our own sort of, I don't know, species, you know, in sort of in the world of higher ed, right? Because most of your what they call doctrinal teachers who had peer-reviewed research and things of that nature, paid more, had more quarter cachet and such. But it sounds like what you're saying is that, and I felt like a lot of students really flocked to the clinics because when they found out that they could actually be doing, real law, they wanted to do that. Whereas when I was in law school, I mean, there were clinics and people were, but they were like, I'll just get that experience when I get on a real job or something. I want to take, law of NASA or something like that, just something kind of cool to learn about. But it sounds like this generation is extremely practical, like you said, and I think that's an interesting takeaway from, again, they're practical. It sounds like they are driven by more issues of personal meaning and personal fulfillment, which kind of runs counter to a lot of stuff that you're offering in the workforce, because a lot of stuff is it's like show up at 9, leave at 5, you get 30 minutes for lunch break. Here's your benefit package. We'll have our 401k person here, on Tuesday or something like that. That kind of runs counter. So I mean,
you hear everything he's saying, Rocky. You hear everything you're saying right now, right?
I mean, I hope so. I mean, it's getting recorded, so at least I know I can always rewind.
Let me interject real quick, Rocky, because
okay.
I want all of us to really be reminded by everything you're saying, especially the fact that everything is counter to what we're talking about with this generation. Everything traditionally and how we're operating as businesses, even nonprofits, are counter. And we're wondering why there's a shortage of workforce.
It almost reminds me of, like I was saying, my parents in their late 70s, that is how it was supposed to be. And so my generation, Gen X, was, well, that's the way my parents told me it had to be, so I have to do it, but I don't want to do it and I don't like doing it. So I taught my children, don't do it. It's not right. Don't bow down, It's
so right there,
getting it. It's like,
so now you're proving the point as to why Gen Z or even the millennials and the Gen Z are the ones who are doing exactly what you're saying, because parents like you who went through the authoritative style of parenting, right? You, based on your own experience, are telling your own kids, stand up for yourself. Don't just accept that. Don't just go do that.
Yeah.
And that's why we're seeing these younger generations starting with, because the millennials, they saw their parents, they listened to their parents, and they started to question things. They still did it. And I'm an older millennial, so I'm speaking from that perspective now. I'm one of the eldest millennials, and we still did what we were told, but we're also the generation that still remembers analog and digital. I still remember the internet coming in when I was just graduating high school, right? So now there's a shift coming.
Fuzzy sound whenever you're logging on.
All of it. I still remember it like it was yesterday.
You got mail.
You got mail, right?
Yeah.
AOL. All of those things I remember vividly. So we then started to access information as millennials. We were the younger generations that now started to access information that made us question just sitting down and just absorbing theory, right? Because now we're having information at our fingertips through the internet. Now you look at Gen Z, they were born with technology and they're natives of the digital world, where now they're not limited at all in any information. So they don't need to sit in the classroom and be told and be thrown a whole lot of information at, or we don't need to throw information at them anymore. They can access it whenever they want at any second of the day. What we need to do is show them how to make this information practical. Let it be something that they can see as practical. How do you now take this information and use it for your benefit and the benefit of whatever organization or even the community that you're in? That's what they're asking about. Millennials started to question things, but still did it. Gen Z is saying, you know what? I don't care about what you're telling me because what you're telling me doesn't match up with what you're doing. And because I see that you're miserable doing what you're trying to tell me to do, I'm really not doing it.
Yeah, I've heard about it. So it sounds like authenticity is like a real driver,
There
you
you
know.
go. There you go.
So I mean, it sounds like that because I think that was one of when we talked, wrote down some notes, and I think I had in quotes here, do as we do, not as we say, which is like the, or I mean, I guess it's like the opposite. I guess it's like I guess that's why, maybe, certain candidates who seem to have like that would be fringe, like 20 years ago, like say Bernie Sanders or someone like that, it's fringe, he'd probably get like 2% of the vote at that, because Nader only got like that much, but then you fast forward to this generation, he's right there, and I think that's because, and a lot of that, because I've talked to my students, why about it's like, well, because they're real. I believe what they're saying, and I bring that into is kind of like, because I think that creates a lot of challenges for the type of clients that and I mean both from the nonprofit sector to the for-profit sector, and it presents challenges for HR recruitment. It presents challenges obviously for education itself. It's almost like this particular generation is kind of like, I'm not going to compare it to COVID, but in the sense that it's forcing us to kind of reevaluate, a lot of our systems. Because you said, I think earlier on you said that we've kind of approached things like HR things from a system. We have a checklist, right? Like when you're onboarding somebody, it's pretty simple, right? You say, oh, give me your license, we'll get your W-2, and all this, blah blah blah. And I guess we're in sort of uncharted territory if truly this particular generation is not playing by the rules that previous generations have played with. Then what do we do? That's why you're here.
So Rocky, to that point, that's why I am telling everyone, not only do we have to reevaluate and reassess, we also now must innovate.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have the luxury of just sitting back and hoping things just change for themselves anymore.
Mm-hmm.
If that's the approach, then a lot
mm-hmm.
of companies and organizations will lose big time.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be like so let's go back to like one of our clients, like let's say it's a financial planning firm or some organization, set up, to commercial real estate or something like that. I mean, they're not necessarily things that, like, kids, no one just shows them, goes like, unless their fathers or mother or something, like, I want to be a commercial real estate agent when I grow, but tell me like how, like the HR of the future is gonna need to, or at least, and I think it plays into the schools and the higher education as well. So I think you can't, because there has always been kind of that baton, right? There's the college degree, and that's like the baton you hand to the HR, right? Because then it runs off, and then you kind of created said career. It sounds like that particular playbook may need to be scrapped, and now we're left with no playbook. But maybe you can kind of at least give us a glimpse of what a new playbook would look like.
You want to hear what my Armahs Playbook is?
Okay.
I show up where they are. I throw away all of my own standards and expectations, and I literally sit on the floor with them. If they're sitting on the floor, I sit on the floor.
Okay.
And I don't tell them things. I just try to help them understand, first and foremost, that the only reason why I'm here in this room with you and choosing to sit on this floor with you is because I care about what's most important to you and you becoming better. Whatever that means to you, I don't know, I don't care in terms of what specifically it is. But what is important to me is that you understand without a shadow of a doubt that I care about you to the point where I'm only here for your improvement, your empowerment, and you getting better and doing anything you want to do, because I want to hear what you care for. I want to hear about what's important to you. We don't ask people what's important to them, especially these younger kids. We don't ask them about their things of interest. We're basically telling them what to do so much that we're not even asking them questions, and actively listening. And all they want to know is that you first care.
Oh,
Before you do anything with them, before you take them anywhere, they want to know that you first care.
So it sounds like ultimately it comes back to everybody needing to be a teacher in many respects. Because there's that old saying, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's
and that was like kind of an underlying idea when I was a teacher. And it sounds like at least that kind of aspect has to, that's a heavy kind of shift, because I think, in many respects, everything has been seen as so transactional, right? In many of our lives has been, I'll do X amount of years here and I'll get some experience. I'll move to next job X, I get a phone call from headhunter Y, about this, that, or the other. And it sounds like this particular generation is not just screaming for, but is demanding something of meaning. It's something that obviously things I had seen when working in the nonprofit sector, which so maybe many of these challenges may be, it's funny because in many respects, the nonprofit sector is always trying to imp the for-profit sector, right? They're always saying, you got to treat it like a business. Of course you do. But, there's always kind of this idea where it's almost like it should maybe be the other way around. Maybe the for-profits are going to need to imp the nonprofits if they're going to want to, try to be competitive here. Because I think that, I don't know, there's a lot of different ways to kind of interpret this labor shortage, right? Maybe minimum wage hasn't been raised, and God knows, like, since you were in, like, college, it's been many years there. But at the same time, many folks, maybe, the COVID, you're just sitting at home and maybe you realize, I hate driving for Uber. Right. I don't ever want to do this again. Maybe that thought has come up in one's head.
Let me add a couple of things on that note, Rocky, because I want all of you to hear this too, because a lot of you are parents yourselves, or you have family members who have children in this age demographic. The other unique challenge for corporations, because of what you're saying with technology and the gig economy that we're now in, right? Because we're officially in a gig economy. Young people know that they can literally go on the internet, figure something out, and they can get paid doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, like monetizing a Twitch or a YouTube or something.
That's right. They literally know they can go online if they are willing to invest the time and the energy. They can not only figure something out online, but they can turn it into a revenue generating stream of income for themselves. And the proof to that is that I just had a meeting with a couple of other teachers, or a few other teachers and an administrator in counseling, regarding a student, male student who's a sophomore. His father verified and confirmed this on a call. I already knew this because I'm the entrepreneurship teacher and he's in my class. I met him last year because another teacher was having such a hard time with getting him to even be interested in anything. So she came and she found me and said, you might need to talk to this kid, because teachers are all of a sudden coming to me asking me to help them with students that they're having issues with and challenges with. This young man sells shoes, sneakers.
Okay.
He's been doing it for about a year now. Guess how much he made in the past 3 to 4 months selling sneakers? Take a wild guess.
In a year, or just like
just in these months, 3 to 4 months.
$5,000.
Almost 400,000.
Are you kidding? Whoa! What? Can I talk to him? Can you give me his contact? Just playing.
No, seriously.
It's what he's working hard to make that kind of money. That is
correct.
It's doable.
But he doesn't care about school. He has no interest or motivation for anything related to school.
Like our kid, he watches like a lot of these YouTube like people, and like and some of the YouTube kids, like one of them, like he's like a kind of a comedian, and he's quite self-made, but he hasn't gone to college yet. And I have heard him say from time to time, well, what's the point of me going to college? You know, I could be like Malin Levine and make like, money doing some stuff here. And that's kind of, and that's, I mean, there's been no discussion in our house like, oh, I never want to get, I regretted going to college or any of this sort of stuff. That's kind of a scary thing that you just entered in and just kind of frankly says, I don't see the need to go to college, which, I mean, and in some respects, it's like when you hear about the student debt and maybe they're watching the TV too about, all the issues of debt forgiveness and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe their siblings or maybe their friends at the church or somewhere, or, like I went to college and I'm swimming in, geez, like you talked about maybe they would take the money that person got in shoes to pay off some of these students, debt, I mean,
Right.
but that's wild, like $400,000, and well, yeah, it'd be hard to tell, it clearly, like you couldn't tell me nothing if I'm making 400. I mean, how much? I'd turn around to my dad and be like, "How much you make last year?"
Rocky, let me put this into perspective, right? Yeah. Between the counselor, the administrator, the assistant principal, myself, and the 2 other teachers that he has this semester that were all on that call, this kid made more than us in a 3 to 4 month span in terms of our collective salaries. He made more than every single one of us combined.
Yeah, I mean, there's
and we're supposed to be telling him that he needs to do this and it's good for his future. And he's looking at us like, I make more money.
We're in a whole new, we're in a whole new game here. This is, you're right. I think any of your standard, if you don't go to college, you won't become something. I got $400K. And I'm not even an athlete, I mean,
and you're still broke, telling me that I need to do this.
Well, and most of them are used tennis shoes. They go and buy them, and they clean them, and
exactly. It's a process.
Yeah, they're very resourceful. I mean, my kids, they don't. When they were maybe middle school, they would shop at the mall, but now they prefer to go, to Goodwill.
Right.
Salvation Army,
right,
way before they would go to Urban Outfitters or Abercrombie and Fitch or any of those places. But anyways, I have to go. I have an internal staff training I'm teaching, so I loved the conversation. Thank you so much, Armah. It was so nice to meet you, and
great to meet you.
Connect. So thank you.
Thank you.
Wow. Well, I think we can keep chatting. I mean, I think that please. Other folks jump in. I mean, this was meant to be interactive. I mean, obviously, we've got, I'm sure that you've got questions that maybe you could ask Armah about what he is seeing in the students that he's, working with. What are some of the challenges that you've seen on your end as far as, the challenges, because there are also opportunities. So challenges and opportunities with the emerging Gen Z workforce and it ultimately comes out, it's almost like, what's the future of America in some respects, I mean, it could be as big a conversation, or it could be, how do we recruit these kids to our firm,
Well, I'm going to have to get ready to jump off in a minute, but I really appreciate that. Of course, me working in the higher education realm. So Armah, you're seeing them before we get them here, and I think exactly what you're saying is true. When I started this job 5 years ago, I had never worked in higher ed before, and so it just took a minute to really start to understand a little bit more. People who've been in higher ed before, they knew all about all the theories and the different generations of students that we were getting and what to expect, but I didn't know. And so now, when we get together with the different students, it's just a different way of learning, a different way of doing things. When I talk to so many students and they tell me about investments that they've already gotten, and Armah, you were at the when we did the barbershop talk here.
I remember, yeah.
Students who were educating the other ones on investing. I'm like, wow, so I think there's some things that are practical that you would get from college, where, if you're getting into those kind of things, to get some baseline information on it. But there's a lot of things that, just we have to really think differently about how we educate students. The experiential learning piece is a big part of it. You know, we do a lot of stuff with, you know, just the community engagement piece where, you know, they teach something in the classroom and then they put you out into the community and say, okay, now you can actually see how it works in the real world, in the nonprofit world or whatever. So it's more of that kind of thing where if we don't get on board with that, but first of all, we have to, you know, be able to encourage students to say, you know, there's something still that the college has to offer you, because, you know, if you're just trying to go into these, you know, do these college fairs at the high schools and try to convince people that you need to come to my college and learn this, you know, it's not really there. You know, some of the soft skills are not, you know, not so much wanting to talk so much about the stuff that I do, but some of these other soft skills that you also still need to pick up along the way in terms of, you know, the other work that you do is important too. So yeah, I mean, I just think that this is something that we all need to continue to just, you know, share with people, and we all need to be flexible enough to know that every student is not going to show up in the same space where you have to think about the traditional way of how we've always taught, you know, sitting down on the floor with them and you know, and meeting them where they are is going to be so important. So yeah, you know, I appreciate you sharing that. And it's, you know, I always know that you were going to have something good to share. And you know, you're on my list to, you know, right now I'm just kicking off tomorrow. I'm having an introduction meeting for this minority male mentoring program that we're starting here at Queens. And so, you know, it's just one of those things, again, you know, preparing these students for what it's going to be like outside of the walls of this, you know, what kind of things do you need to learn. And so you're on my list to come and speak.
Hey, I'm there wherever you need me, sir.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But I do appreciate you all, you know, having these sessions, and I always wish that I could make more of them, but you know, it's always very, very insightful to hear all the great speakers come in and talk about things that are so relevant. So thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, so sorry, I got to run. This is how my day has been all day long. So, yeah.
Thank you for making it.
Thank you. We'll see y'all.
See you soon.
All right. Well, we got any other questions? I mean, you know, we've got, or comments, you know, because you know, I feel like we've had I knew today would be a fun conversation, and I feel like we're only really scratching the surface with a lot of this stuff. You know, I think, you know, it's kind of one of these, like, it's like a website. It's under construction, right? Our understanding and everything that we're doing really is, it almost feels like everything in our collective lives is still is that classic building the plane while it's in the air. You know, sort of, you know, sort of feeling. And yeah, I you know, I applaud you, Armah, to be there and, you know, really learning more. And again, put another plug in for Armah Shiancoe's. It's an ebook right now, but you can print it out. And I would say this, for those of you who are involved with, particularly with young people, it's kind of like a workbook in many ways, and I think it's interactive. You know, I may very well just hand this to our kid and see if he, you know, see if he takes to it. I can, you know, again, I may need to set some predicate, like, what does this mean, as opposed to me, because I hand him a lot of stuff and it just sits there in the corner. Yeah, there's I don't know. It's
how about this? Let me help you out, Rocky.
Yeah.
Hand it to him and say, hey, if you're going to take this, the person who wrote this book thinks that there's a leadership, there are leadership skills that you have that can be enhanced, and they would love to talk to you about the book after you've read it.
Okay. All right.
Hopefully that helps.
Yeah. Well, all right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining us for another leadership series. This will be going up onto our YouTube channel very shortly. And Shannon, who do we got up next? Our next,
Ronnie Bryant is our next.
Ronnie
guest.
Bryant. It is, and when we talk about his
make that one.
Yeah,
he's got his new book
if you
called,
can.
I will do my best, because Ronnie is a long time. He's been like a mentor over the years, almost.
Yeah.
And we're talking about his book, Driving from the Back Seat, which is about nonprofit CEO leadership, which I probably could have used when I got into the firefight that was being a nonprofit executive director. enough to make me go back to practicing law. All right, everyone. Well, Armah, man, always a pleasure to see you.
Thanks,
Don't be
always a
stranger. You know, maybe we can I'll collect those views and we can all go out for lunch sometime and
Love that.
just catch up because, I mean, yeah,
I would
we
love
had to stop going to lunch, so let's just go to lunch.
I want to see you guys in person.
I hear you, man.
Yeah.
No, well, you got Shannon. They hook it up. We'll, but anyway, everybody, thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
See you all.
Bye.
Thank you for having me.